Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city sand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city sand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. And we start another series on the West Coast against the San Diego Padres, the fallen San Diego Padres, as they just can't get out of their own way and are a few games under 500. And just like the Mets did to the Giants and put them out of their misery, it is time for the New York Mets to put the Padres out of their misery, as the New York Mets face the San Diego Padres in San Diego. Dylan Cease on the mound against Frankie Montas. This is probably soon to be traded Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres and Frankie Montas. It is a game today where I'm thinking where the Mets are playing on a 7-game winning streak. They're playing well. They're pitching well. They're playing good defense. They're actually hitting. And there is still time to make this team better. Still got, a little over, obviously this is the 4 days until the deadline. Obviously in a few hours, it'll be 3 days until the deadline. Still a lot of rumors, still a lot of information coming out. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yes, the Padres are 57-49. That is my boo-boo. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong team for some reason. I don't know why I was looking at the wrong team. I know what I was doing. That's exactly what I was doing. And that's bad on my part. That's on my fault, guys. I was looking at the wrong team for some reason, and that is absolutely wrong. And you are right about that. Thank you, Dolph. Yes, 57-49. I know what I did there. Okay. I exactly read that completely wrong. Dolph, good job. Hold me to it. And there's a typo. When there's a typo, Mets win. So there's a good sign for that. Joe Musgrove cheated. Yeah, I know. I don't like the Padres either. It was always a sour taste in my mouth, but the Mets didn't help themselves in 2022, the way they played down the stretch, losing the division, and we're basically ready to lose that series at home for the wild card. So yeah, I totally agree with you guys when it comes to Dolph, good job, by the way. Just so you know, the record is wrong for the Padres. They're 57-49. All right, 57-49. I don't know what team I was looking at, but it definitely wasn't the Padres. Yeah, exactly. His ears are more shiny on a very cold day. I know because I was there for all 3 of those games. It was freaking cold during those wild card games. So yeah, I do get the fact that the Mets, there was interest in Brendan Lau. I think that would be a better addition, to be honest, over Cedric Mullins or Luis Robert. I know he doesn't play center field, but he plays corner outfield. He plays second base. And this goes to the fact that Brandon Lau makes sense if Vientos is on the move. And I'm not talking about Vientos for Luis Robert. I'm not saying that at all. I'm talking about Vientos being a part of another deal. And that is something that, I think when, I heard that today, I'm like, oh, Brandon Lau, you know what? That makes sense. If you're going to trademark Vientos, get somebody filling in his spot or filling that roster spot that can actually play, batting near 270, 19 home runs, 50 RBIs, very good player. and he plays multiple positions. He's basically a Jeff McNeil who plays, could play corner outfield, could play second base. And, I know it's not a center fielder, but then you can really use McNeil and Tyrone Taylor in center field when needed. And it's a lefty-righty situation. McNeil can play, start a lot of the games, and Tyrone Taylor can come late in defensive replacement, which he was supposed to be. The Mets are better when Tyrone Taylor is coming in late in games for defensive purposes. Tyrone Taylor is a fourth outfielder. The Mets are at their best when Tyrone Taylor is their fourth outfielder, not when he's a starting center fielder. It just doesn't work. It just does not work. And yeah, I don't know if you guys checked out my video, but I did a video about that possible trade proposals that I thought of. And, obviously they got a couple of bullpen arms we can be looking at as well. But yeah, I mean, you can bat him fifth, you can bat him sixth, you can put him in the mix somewhere in between, Alonso and Alvarez. There's so many different options, and that lightens your lineup. That would be a solid move. I could see the Mets doing that, right? You got club options. You got a club option for Brandon Lau, so it's not like and I think it's like $11.5 million club option, which isn't bad for his production. I mean, the guy can hit close to 30 home runs by the end of the year and bat 270 and probably have about 80 RBIs. That's a bargain. The Mets gave Harrison Bader $10 million last year, and he did nothing. So I really think that when it comes to what the Mets actually need to do, just get the better bat. That's what I care about, right? Until today, Brandon Lau wasn't an option. Now he is. We were talking about it yesterday on the 400 shows that I did yesterday, that, it seems like the only bats that are out there, at least that we know of, was Suarez, was Robert, was Mullins. And it didn't, besides Suarez, which is obviously a very much a long shot, that ain't happening. You're looking at subpar players that, could they potentially come to a new team, change the scenery, and perform like they did a couple of years ago? Sure, of course they can, right? There's always that possibility. But you always want to get the better player, or the guy at least is playing right now. I think when it comes to guys, offense, and guys with the bat, I think that I would always take the guy who's actually playing well with the bat over guys who are pitching that are not performing well. I've always had that mentality, because I always feel like change the scenery, get him moved to a bad team, to a contender. For some reason, it helps the pitchers. It makes them focus more. And that's why I'm not concerned when, they're like, oh, well, Gregory Soto almost, he's been okay this year. He hasn't been great, yet nobody was mad about that trade. Why? He had 3.6, 3.7 ERA, nothing special, but we know what he can do, right? The possibility of a bat changing its course of what they've been doing all year from bad, and then you hope it's being good. I think and David, that's fine. I don't care what you think. That's fine, right? You came on my show. I didn't go on your show. So that's fine. You just came on your show. So thank you for the view. Thank you for the time, but I don't care, right? I say what I have to say. If you don't like it, I tell you, go elsewhere. I say it all the time, and I have no problem saying that, right? I don't force nobody to be here. So when it comes to it, I feel like pitchers change the scenery, pitchers going into a bad team to a good team. I always feel like there's more of a chance of that pitcher doing well than that hitter that was doing bad doing better. Even though there's so many different, examples of hitters that haven't been playing well, go to a contending team, play well. Same thing for pitchers. So, again, everything is a chance. Everything's a risk, right? You can make all the right moves and the players don't perform, right? If we all agree on what the Mets do by July 31st at 6 p.m. and everybody is on board of what David Stearns and the Mets did, doesn't mean it's going to be successful, right? If they do get Brandon Lau, if they do get another, let's say a Fairbanks or another really good reliever, and they already have Gregory Soto. Let's say they do get, another rotation on. I'm not going to say it's going to be somebody big, but let's say it's a solid middle of the rotation guy. Just because we agreed that it's a good idea doesn't mean, and that if they were good moves, that it's going to work out. So I think the fact that we're looking at all different aspects of where we need to go here is important, because Brandon Lau is a good player, right? I don't know what it's going to take, but as I said in my video, and you can check it out if you want, I go a little bit into details here. I don't think you have to give up a ton for Brandon Lau, because again, Tampa Bay is not trading him because, they feel like they're just out of it. They're trading him because he's going to make he has a club option for next year, or $11 million, and he's making decent money this year. They want to shed payroll. That's why they're trading people. And what are they, a few games over 500? So, that's what you're trying to get. So you probably give I would say maybe one top 10 to 15 prospect, and probably some guy that's maybe in the lower levels of the minor leagues that's not really ranked in the top 25. You can probably do that. And I also, talk about Fairbanks as well, where you can package Lau and Fairbanks. And yeah, you got to probably give 2 top 15 prospects, maybe even 2 top 10 prospects. And you get exactly what you need. You get a solid right-handed bullpen arm, and you get the bat in the lineup. And you didn't need to get a center fielder. You didn't need to get, a Bednar. I know Class A is kind of out of the question now because of the betting stuff that's going on. But yeah, you get the bat in your lineup. You get another strong bullpen arm. And you basically covered almost every hole that you need except for a rotation arm. But if you make a trade for a Lau or and Fairbanks, or let's just say Lau and another reliever, it's not going to cost you massive prospects and a big package of prospects, or even, top line prospects, where you might have to use that to get that start in pitching. So I think you can get away with that and get what you need and fill those holes without giving up a ton of top prospects, where you might have to use them for a top 3 starter. And, Wardy did the report, and in regards to Sandy Alcantara, that there talks are heating up between the Mets and the Marlins in regards to Sandy Alcantara. So that is something that is going on as well. And we'll see, right? I still think Vientos for Robert. I think that deal is already okay I think both teams have said yes already. But I think David Stearns is holding back, because I think if it was just Vientos for Robert, I think that trade would have happened already, right? We've heard this, 4 or 5 days ago? I think the trade would have happened already. What I think is going on here is that once the talks are intensifying, once we heard that the Mets are talking with the Marlins about pitching, I wonder if the Marlins say, hey, we will take Vientos part of a package deal to give us one of the pitches, whatever it might be. If it's Sandy Alcantara, if it's Edward Cabrera, I think it's more Sandy Alcantara, because I think the upside there is more likely what they're thinking, the New York Mets, when it comes to, they probably think they can get him in a pitching lab and fix whatever's going on. I truly believe that is their idea. I never believe they're going to get Merrill Kelly or Zach Gallen. They are rentals, and they're going to cost you for rentals for 2 months. And I don't think David Stearns is doing that. He'd rather take the risk of a guy that has control, who does have the upside, and Sandy Alcantara does. Again, am I saying that he's going to come here and pitch great for the next 2 months? I'm not. But I am confident the fact that the Mets have fixed a lot of pitchers in bullpen in their rotation that came here, and they fixed things that they saw on video. And I do think they have the same mentality when it comes to Sandy Alcantara. So I don't think getting a rental is what David Stearns wants, especially with the starting pitching. It does not make sense to him. Again, I don't agree with that. I think you go get the player that can help you right now, and then you worry about next year. You worry about the offseason next year. But that's not what he does. And I don't feel like, And that's why and that's why you haven't really heard much, I would say, push or any noise with the Mets and the Diamondbacks in regards of for Zach Allen or Merrill Kelly. They're not doing rentals. And I know that might annoy some people in the chat, but it's a fact. He's not getting rentals. It's just not happening. And I don't like that approach. I think you go get the better player, but it is what it is. He's just not doing that. Are the Padres better than the Giants? I guess you could say yes. I mean, but the Padres can't get out of their own way either. They have, they should be better than what they are. Like, they got a really good lineup. They got really good pitching. I mean, it's older pitching, but they got good pitching. I don't know what their issue is. I still feel like it's a environment in the clubhouse that's a problem. I think too many people try to do their own thing. I think there's too many guys that are way too cocky and are over their heads, and they don't play as a team. I think they play as individuals. And I think we talked about that around 2021, where it felt like the Mets didn't have leaders, that, the inmates were running the asylum. Everybody was playing for themselves. And I think that's the problem with the Padres. I don't think they play as a team. I think they play as individuals that play on a team. That's the way I feel. Juan, now, if you tell me the A's would take Vientos and 2 more leggers for Brent Rooker, that's not happening. The A's already said, Rooker already says that the A's are not trading them. Now, are they lying to him? Who the hell knows? Again, I would trade for Brent Rooker. You made that, you put that package right now. I do it right now. Do it right now, 100%. Like 100%. Well, Mo, I mean, can't pitch, you can't win. How did the Dodgers do in the playoffs last year with barely any pitching? They were doing bullpen games in every series. They won by bludgeoning people offensively. They were out hitting everybody. They were just a juggernaut offensively. It wasn't their pitching. Their pitching wasn't terrible, but it wasn't World Series caliber the way they pitched in the postseason. They were giving up a lot of runs as well. They were just outscoring everybody. Yeah, Mo, they went on a hot run, but the offense was hot all year. It wasn't the Dodgers pitching. I think the way baseball is set up now, you can win in many different ways. You can have a dominant bullpen in the playoffs, and it can take you to the promised land. If you got the way starting pitching is now and the way they use starting pitching, they're 4 or 5 inning pitches. Starters don't go deep into games in the postseason anymore. It's very rare. Excuse me. But Mo, you're wrong. It's not a fact. The fact of the matter is, I just gave you an example. The Dodgers last year beat teams by their offense, not their pitching. But what I would say is that there's different ways to win now, because the way the playoffs are set up, if you got great starting pitching, but the problem is great starting pitching don't win you championships. There was teams in the Philadelphia Phillies, for example, had the best starting pitching, I think, in the playoffs. Yet they got knocked out by the New York Mets with Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, and Jose Quintana. Like, that's what we won by. So that's the problem. Like, that is the thing. Like, starting pitching in the playoffs isn't starting pitching like it used to be in 10 years ago. It's just not how it goes anymore. It doesn't. They can't wait to take out pitchers in the postseason. Any sign of trouble, they're taking out a guy in the postseason. And that goes for any name. That goes for any name. Well, again, Mo, it's no feeling, but it's just not a fact. It's not true. If that's the case, the Phillies should have won the World Series last year because they had the best pitching staff. They made the bullpen moves at the deadline. They had one of the better rotations in the playoffs. Same thing goes for, but Mo, it's not a simple fact. Again, you're not giving me an example. I gave you an example and you just don't want to admit it. That's on you. Pitching doesn't win championships. Again, the Dodgers didn't win by pitching last year, right? 2 teams in the Yankees and the Dodgers. You think they won on pitching and got to the World Series? No. Pitching gets you through a season. When you get to the playoffs, the way they deal with pitching now, They take guys out early as soon as trouble happens. And Mo, you could say I'm dead wrong, but I just gave you an example. Defense, yeah, a defense, I agree with you. Defense is real. I mean, that's how the Yankees got to the World Series. I mean, the teams they faced butchered the ball. Defense, I think, is more important because of the fact that it just is. And that's a fact. Well, again, Mo, I just brought it up to you. The New York Mets, who, let's be honest, their pitching isn't great last year. They were facing one of the better rotations in the NLDS and the Phillies. How did that work out? With your comment, the Phillies should have won the World Series because they had better pitching than everybody else. Guess what they did? They were packing their bags in the NLDS when the Mets were moving on. Yeah, 100 years of baseball. It's not 100 years ago. It's not even 10 years ago. There's very limited starters that go deep into games. And most bullpens aren't very good. You might got 2 or 3 guys, maybe if you're lucky, that are good in your bullpen in most playoff teams. The fact is, you can win in many different ways now. You can win in many different ways now. I think if you do have a good starting rotation or a good pitching staff, bullpen and starters, you could win. But you also have to score runs. You can't have a bad offense and win. It just doesn't work. So, again, I think there's so many different ways to win. I think the Mets are somewhat set up now with their offense looking better and getting a better bullpen. I think it helps. I don't think the Mets starting rotation is anything to, write home about. You think I'm confident going into the playoffs with a rotation that the Mets currently have? You're out of your damn mind. And I do think the Mets lost because their pitching fell apart last year. But they also had games where they scored 10 runs and they scored 0 runs. Like, that was their other issue too. They didn't score consistently. So we will see what wins. But again, the last 5 years, look at the teams that have been winning. Their pitching staffs weren't good. It was offense, and then it was bullpen. Like, the way it's set up now, the way the playoffs are, like, you need a tremendous amount of pitchers to get through a couple of playoff rounds. Like, it's just a fact. But it's been the offense, the teams with the offense. The Texas Rangers were beating teams up offensively when they won 2 years ago. The Dodgers did it last year. Mo, pitching is why they're on their streak right now. No, it's not. No, it's not. The Mets actually are scoring runs and getting clutch hits. And I don't think the Mets pitching has been great, to be quite honest with you. And again, I don't trust this. I don't trust and I do think the middle relief and dominant closer is important in the playoffs. But I think the Mets got some clutch hits, and that's why they've been winning. When they weren't winning, they weren't getting clutch hits. And yeah, pitching was bad too, but they weren't hitting either. Yeah, the bottom of the lineup did produce. I think that was a big reason why the Giants series was a big success. So we got Frankie Montas on the mound. We got Dylan Cease on the mound. Dylan Cease, there are rumors about him possibly being moved. I don't know what the Padres are doing, to be quite honest with you. I know they got holes, and they're trying to fill that by trying to, I guess, dangle Dylan Cease. For whatever reason, I don't understand taking from your major league roster when that guy is actually helping your team. Like, a guy like Vientos is not helping our team, so he's expendable for the right move. Like, he's an asset that teams like. That is, Dylan Cease. I mean, I just don't get it. I think he'll help your team more than trading them for maybe a hole you have, but doesn't that leave a hole in the rotation? But that's not my team. That's not my team. Yeah. Mo, I agree. I agree. Like, it's not a rental, but like, I don't know. Like, it's odd to me that you're gonna take off the major league roster when their rotation has had issues this year. They had injury issues. They haven't been as good in years past. Like, to take away from your strength, I think it's a dangerous game to play, right? Mo, you're just talking about pitching, right? If look at the Padres. How many years in a row everybody talks about their rotation, yet They're a fringe playoff team for a couple of years now. They can never take over the Dodgers in the division. They beat them once in the playoffs, and it's been a failure for them, and they spent a ton of money. So it's amazing to me how weird, their situation is, but not our problem, right? It's only our problem for the next 3 games. And, with Frankie Montas on the mound, Frankie Montas has been solid. As much as most people didn't even want to see him come back, this is why you have professional pitchers, guys that are veterans that go out there. And Frankie Montas is important because he'll give you the innings, right? He ain't going to give you a great start, but he'll give you a quality start. And if he's not doing well, he'll still give you 5 to 6 innings. It's rare that Frankie Montas is going to come out in the 3rd inning. He will throw his 85 to 90 pitches. That's what he does. That's what he does. Bader. Oof. But, that's the idea. And when you get professional pitching, especially during the season, right, the Mets can get by on a lackluster rotation. It's obvious. I don't think it's going to help you when you get to the playoffs, but I think your offense has to take over. The Mets hope the offense takes over in the playoffs, and we will see. So the lineup today is very similar to yesterday, right? You got Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, McNeil. The only difference, Vientos is in the lineup at DH. Now, interesting that he wasn't in the lineup yesterday. Came out in the middle of the game the other day, in game 2. And now he's back in the lineup DHing, right? He's not playing the field. Don't even worry about that. He's not playing the field anymore. But I don't think he's playing the field again. One, because I don't think the Mets want to get him hurt, because I think he's in trade talks, right? I think he is in a deal for somebody very shortly. So he'll DH. Hopefully he helps us. And we all know what's going to happen. Vientos is going to DH over the next couple of days if he doesn't get traded. He's going to hit. And then everybody's going to be like, don't trade Vientos. Don't trade Vientos. And then we'll trade Vientos. That's what's going to happen, right? He's not going to go over like 15 before the Mets trade him. And then everybody will be like, oh, trade him. Don't worry about it. No, he's going to be hitting, probably win us a game or 2 with his bat. And everybody doesn't want to trade him all of a sudden. Well, Dolo, that's what I'm thinking, right? I mean, he's on the roster. You can't sit him and not play him and waste a roster spot until he's traded, right? That doesn't make sense. All it does, it messes with his head, number one. You don't need a guy on the bench thinking he's getting traded at any moment and just sitting on the bench and probably moping. Get his ass out there and let him worry about baseball. And I always say this to anybody, and that, I guess I would feel that way for if I was a professional ball player. I don't look at it as the Mets don't want me. I look at it as the team that trades for me wants me. At the end of the day, you're still getting your money. You're still playing baseball. It's not like you're going to the Mets to the Rays and they take a big pay cut. You're getting paid what you're getting paid, and you're still playing the game you love. That's the way I take from it. Now, I know it sucks going from a contender to a loser and no playoff hopes. I understand that. But there's a team that wants you in trade talks. They're trading for you. I think that's important. Yeah, business is business, but we saw what Wilmer Flores, right? That wasn't about business when he cried, right? And yeah, it's absolutely business. They know it's business, but it also sucks when you're a top 3 team in baseball, like the Mets are, and you're Mark Vientos, and you grew up in this organization, and now you're playing for the Marlins. Now, it could be a lot worse places than playing in Miami, living in Miami, but you get to play. You get, and what I think hopefully I would think like a guy like Vientos say, listen, I'm in Miami 4 more years because I'm under control. By year, his second year in Miami, when he's, in that second or third tier of arbitration, they're not paying him. So if you're playing well, you're going to get traded to a contender once again. So that's the mentality he has to have. And I hope he does have that. And again, I don't like trading from my major league roster, but the roster does not make sense the way the Mets currently are constructed. It just doesn't make sense. Just doesn't. You got 4 guys play similar positions, and you sit 2 of them on the bench on a consistent basis. Makes no sense. I think it's stupid. And when you got that logjam, use them as assets. There's no need to keep them around just for kicks and giggles, just so fans can be happy about keeping their prospect huggers. Like that has been the problem. The roster construction isn't smart with all of these guys in the on the roster, because you can't play them all. It's hard to play them all. It just is, right? Like right now, today, right? You got every one of these guys in, but with Vientos being basically a 0 this year, you're sitting Marte because why? He's not good against right-handers, yet he's been red hot. So you put Vientos in, who's been cold as ice, and hopefully he hits something. Like, that's the problem. You're sitting guys that are hot because you got to play Vientos. You can't just sit him for 3 days. You can't do it. You got to play him because he's useless on the roster. You're basically playing with 25 minutes out of 26. It doesn't make sense. Same thing with Acuna, right? You're not playing Acuna right now, right? Another guy sitting on the bench. A top prospect that all we heard about, Luisano Acuna, top prospect. You don't play him. Why? Because you got too many guys in the same freaking positions. It doesn't work. Does not work. Use them as assets. Use them as assets. If you got to use Vientos and Acuna to get better, you do it. They have not helped the team this year very much at all. They have been mostly 0. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep a top prospect up that's not in the minor leagues, who isn't developing, and you're going to use him for his speed and defense. Like, that's not a top prospect. That's a utility guy. That is a role player. If Acuna is going to be a role player, then fine. Don't call him a top prospect. But that's what he is. He's a top prospect. They're playing him like a role player. Stupid roster construction. Mark Vientos had the third base job. It was basically his to lose. And it wasn't even about him. We weren't even talking about Mark Vientos losing his spot. Or even, God forbid, talking about trading him starting the season. It was his job to lose. It's Mark Vientos' fault that he lost the third base job. It's on him. Nobody else. It's not like the Mets didn't give him opportunities. He was given the job out of spring training. We all understood that. He understood that. He played so bad that he lost his job. And that was with Beatty and Acuna not playing well early on. Just think of that. That's how bad he's been. He hasn't been, somewhat bad or, lukewarm. He's been terrible. You can't have that on your team going forward and hope for the best. There's too many people worrying about, whoa, look what Vientos did last year. You're in game 107 today. You can't have the same guys on your roster on August 1st. And if it doesn't work out, you are absolutely screwed if they don't turn it around. Because if you're going to hope for them to turn it around, then your whole concept of winning is based on hope, not reality, not production. Now, nobody's saying that Vientos can't go crazy in the next 2 months and figure things out. But he hasn't even figured out laying off that slider, laying off those off-speed pitches on the outside corner. That has been his biggest problem. He hasn't adjusted. You stay in the major leagues when you adjust to what other teams do to you. That's how you remain a major leaguer. I say it every year. It takes a full year for the league to adjust to a hitter. Once they figure you out, it's the hitter's job to adjust. And if you don't adjust, you're ending up what Vientos is right now. And by no means am I saying that he can't do it. But again, when are we going to wait? Until September 15th and he's still doing the same thing? This guy might not even hit 10 home runs this year. The scary part is not about the average. It's not about the RBIs. The defense, I never thought he was any good, so that's not shocking. The lack of power is what concerns me more than anything else. He has not hit a home run since late May. Like, you're going on 2 months since he's hit a home run. That's dangerous. That is why the Mets are looking to trade Mark Vientos, because he's a valuable asset that teams still believe in, which is fine. If the Marlins want to believe in him, the Pirates, the White Sox, pick a bad team. Great, play on that team. Lose for a couple of years and figure yourself out. But the power is what is most disappointing, probably from the Mets' perspective. If Mark Vientos was batting 210, 215, 220, but maybe had 15, 16 home runs, I think we'd be okay. I don't think we'd be talking about trading Mark Vientos. But because the average is bad, the RBIs are bad, and the home runs are non-existent, that is why he's on the trade block as an asset. And that's just unfortunate. Yeah, Patrick, but it's not overkill at this point. We're talking about the last 4 days is the deadline. This is when you talk about these players. Vientos is the main reason why the Mets had to make decisions on their roster. This is why you got 47 guys on this playing the same position on this roster. Vientos playing bad made David Stearns put this roster together with a not sustainable roster when it comes to the guys that we were talking about. I think it's an issue. So, yeah, Juan, I don't think it's a hitting coach, though. You know what? How about this? You know, Pete Alonso wasn't talking to Eric Chavez, right? He was talking to his own hitting coach. I don't think it's – see, I think we're too focused on hitting coaches, guys. Like, these guys are professionals. They know if you can't figure it out on your own, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be a major leaguer. I'm sorry. You know, if Vientos can't realize that he can't lay off that pitch outside, then he shouldn't be in the major leagues. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, if he knows his problem and he's not fixing it, either he's not working on it enough or he can't do it. The difference was last year, they weren't throwing. Look at the breaking ball comparison from last year to this year, what they throw. It's a dramatic change. They were throwing them 70% fastball last year compared to 30% breaking ball off-speed pitches last year. You know what's the difference this year? They flipped the switch. It's 70% off-speed breaking balls to 30% fastball. Why throw anything else? He doesn't lay off of it. And the biggest problem, when he gets the opportunity to get a fastball, guess what happens? He's late on it. He misses it completely. You know why? Because his head is so wrapped up in worrying about the off-speed pitches on the outside corner and the breaking balls on the outside corner and off the plate that he's not quick enough for those fastballs because he's so worried about those breaking ball off-speed pitches on the outside corner and off the plate. That's the problem. There's been no adjustment to his hitting at all. At all. And it's frustrating as hell because I don't want to trade guys on our roster. I don't want to do it. It's just unfortunate that you might have to. If you're trying to save, and this is Stearns, this is not me, Stearns is trying to save top prospects for whatever reason, because he's going to find himself in the same predicament next year when you're going to have guys that are ready to come up and know where to play them. So that it's going to sit there and basically, diminish in the minor leagues. So I don't know where half of these guys are going to play. The problem is you can't just keep these guys around and hope for the best. Hope doesn't make you win. Like, we got to understand that. And it's unfortunate because I love the attitude and the cockiness from Mark Vientos. I feel like that motivation, that vibe, I like that. But when you suck, you shouldn't act like the cocky guy that you were last year when you're not performing like you did last year. I think it's sad. Yeah, Matthew, Acuna had power last year, but guess what happened? Teams adjusted. He hasn't adjusted. And I think the power that he showed last year hurt him because Acuna is not a power hitter. Like, same thing with Acuna. They were throwing him a ton of fastballs. Once they saw that he can hit him, they started to throw a ton of breaking balls and a ton of off-speed pitches. And he's had, you know how many home runs he has this year? a big old zero. All right. The fact of the matter is that Acuna shouldn't be a power hitter. He has way too much speed to be batting under 240. He needs to be a 260, 270 hitter, putting the bat on the ball and let his speed play in an at-bat. Put the ball in play. Let the defense make a mistake. Because with your speed, they're going to rush a throw. And you might get on with a throwing error. Use your speed as a weapon. He doesn't do that. He tries to hit home runs. That at bat, when they took out Mark Vientos in the middle of the game, was embarrassing. I mean, a ball was like 10 feet off the plate that he struck out on. And that almost cost us a game, taking out Mark Vientos in the middle of a game. And some might say it was for defensive purposes. I'm sorry. You don't take somebody out in the 5th inning of a game for defensive purposes when he just hit a 2 RBI double in Mark Vientos. Mendoza got word that they were in serious trade talks. They didn't want to get Mark Vientos hurt, and he was playing the field. So that's where we are. Unfortunately, roster has to change. These two guys are roster. You have to manipulate the roster a little bit. Beatty and Mauricio have outperformed both of those guys. It's a competition. Your job is never safe. You got to continue to perform or somebody's going to replace you. That's how sports works. For Acuna and Vientos, it's unfortunate, but that's life. Yeah, but not in the 5th inning. I'm sorry. It had nothing to do with that. You don't take somebody out in the 5th inning in the middle of a game. If you're going to do it in the 7th inning, I understand that. It was a 2-1 ball game where Vientos' bat is more important than Acuna's defense. I'm sorry. Vientos at bat came up in a big spot where Acuna was batting. That could have cost you if Acuna didn't come through and the Giants would have came back and won that game. Everybody would have talked about that move to replace Vientos in the lineup that early in the game when it was a 2-1 ball game. Yeah, it was the 6th inning, still too early. I think it's way too early, especially when Vientos could get 2 more at-bats, or at least 1 more at-bat. Come on, guys, like pay attention. Why would you want Luis Acuna to get an at-bat over Mark Vientos, who hit a 2-run double to give you the lead? It was a 2-1 ball game. It wasn't 5-1 where you're trying to protect a bigger lead. If it was the 7th or 8th inning, I get it. Like, yeah, maybe Vientos got lucky, but he got the hit. And I do think that hit was luck. He turned on an inside fastball, and guess what happens when you struggle? When you struggle, you pull off on everything. So that inside fastball that he pulled off on is easier to hit than a ball that's on the outside corner because you're pulling off of everything. Because if you hit that ball in the outside corner, you're going to roll over and hit a ground ball. Yeah, see, but I'm sorry, not in the 6th inning, guys. Come on. Come on. In 6th inning, when it was a 2-1 ball game and there was a big possibility that Vientos was going to get another at-bat, and it ended up being in a big spot with Luis Acuna. You all know if the Giants would have came back, everybody would have talked about that moment in the game. You know, there was 7 other moments in the game when the Mets could have scored, but people would bring that up. Like, man, it annoyed me. And come on, guys. We all know the talks were going on about Vientos being traded. They didn't want to get him hurt. Now, it might have been a combination of both, where Mendoza, yes, has done that a lot, pulling guys for defensive purposes later in the ballgame, but not that early. Sorry. Find me a defensive purpose in the 6th inning when guys are getting at bats in a close game. No. 7th inning or later, fine. But it probably was a combination of, hey, he's in trade talks, we can't get him hurt, and he sucks defensively. Like, if he sucks so much defensively, don't play him in the field, right? That's stupid nonetheless. Because, by the way, guys, if people didn't pay attention, when he hit that double, They pinch ran for him. Like, they didn't wait until the inning was over. They pitch ran for him. Robert Jr. hit a home run. Oh, he's going to look good in the Mets uniform, guys. Woo! Vientos sent for Robert. I'm calling it. I'm telling you guys, the team that gets Luis Robert, the team that doesn't get Luis Robert is going to have no buyer's remorse. A lot of teams want them. I'm telling you guys, he's going to end up on the freaking Phillies. The Phillies are in on him. The Phillies are in on him. And Mo, yeah, he can't run, but please don't tell me it was only for defensive purposes in the sixth inning. It's so dumb to do it that early. And if Mendoza only did that for that reason, that is even more dumb, because the at-bat that was most important in the game, that could have been most important, was when Acuna was batting for Vientos. Silly. Let them overpay for a rental. Again, well, technically he's not a rental. He has a club option. I know it's for $20 million, so it's technically is for a rental, but I'm sorry. If Vientos is on this team after the deadline, please shut up about him, because he's going to just suck. Well, Mo, again, he's not a rental. He could be a rental if you don't take the club option and you do the buyout for a couple of $1 million. No, I don't think $20 million is worth it. But again, that does not mean he's not going to be good. Suarez got his hand hurt. Lovely. Great. Wonderful. Well, Mo, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, if he ends up being really good for a team's going to think about taking that club option on. Let's say that Luis Robert figures himself out and he's been really good since the All-Star break. Let's say he continues that and has an outstanding second half of 50 games, whatever, how many games after the All-Star break. Teams are really going to think about taking that club option, because if you lose Luis Robert, where are you going in center field? You're going to go right back to Tyrone Taylor again? Is Drew Gilbert going to be a second baseman, center fielder next year? Well, Mo, then you're not going to get anybody, to be quite honest with you. There's too many people that don't want to trade anybody and want everything. Like, it just doesn't work like that, guys. Patrick? Well, I mean, why don't I have people talking about trading Beatty now? You know why? Because he's playing well. You might want to trade high, right? I guarantee you the Marlins, probably the White Sox, they're probably asking for Beatty. But the Mets aren't going to do that. He's basically your second baseman right now. And Beatty might suck. I said this a couple of times on the last couple of shows, guys. If Beatty turns into a pumpkin after this, well, then what do? But you have to make a decision. That's the problem. Stearns is not making a decision. Once he trades some of these guys that are on the Major League roster, again, he's got to trade 2 of the 4. You can't have 3 guys that are just sitting around. Like, one of these guys are going to be sitting around on the bench, and it doesn't make sense. Get me guys who are actually good coming off the bench and utility guys. Tyrone Taylor makes sense as a 4th outfielder. Starlin Marte is a guy that is the bench player, is a utility guy, a guy that can come up and pinch hit. Like, I don't want Bader. You want Bader? Why? We had Bader. Like, come on. That's the guy you want? We need offense. I know Bader's having probably one of his best offensive years in a long time, but I don't think that's going to continue. Wait, Bader is an upgrade? Where? He's not better defensively than Tyrone Taylor. And let's say if it is a wash defensively, do I really believe Harrison Bader is going to continue to hit? Because if he doesn't, guess he's playing center field against Tyrone Taylor. Nah, I don't think it's going to happen. There's been no talks about Bader to the Mets. That's been like serious. Offense, yeah. Again, see, this is the problem. People only want to see, oh, well, let's get this guy. He's playing well. Let's just get him. Like, we watched Bader all season, he had one good month, maybe even 2 good months for the Mets in the first month, couple of 2 months of the year. And then he lost his job to Tyrone Taylor, who is no offensive juggernaut. I don't trust Harrison Bader with his offense. I just don't. And he's playing under no pressure in Minnesota at all. He's playing for basically nothing. And he's playing against a lot of bad teams in the American League, especially in the Central, besides the Tigers. So I don't trust Harrison Bader offensively. But why do you think? Okay, so here's the point. What do you think Harrison Bader is going to cost you nothing? If he's having a better season than Luis Robert, you think Harrison Bader is going to cost you less than Luis Robert? Yes, when you trade, you have to give up something. So you rather trade Vientos for Bader, where the upside for Luis Robert is probably 10 times better than Harrison Bader offensively? He's not going to be way less than Roberts. Absolutely not. Bader's having a better season offensively than Luis Robert. Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to give 2 top prospects for Luis Robert, I mean, go ahead. Okay, then you're fine. Then that's the way you want to think. Then that's fine. But again, that club option gives a team options. Like, it gives them an opportunity to bring back somebody. That is important to a guy like David Stearns. Not saying that he's going to give the $20 million club option to Luis Robert, but Stearns likes his options. Bader gives you no options, right? We watched Bader get $10 million and shit the bed. The White Sox want to keep him. Well, clearly they don't. Yeah, I don't think it's ransom though. I mean, of course, everybody's going to ask for more, but they're not going to get more for Luis Robert. I think the best they can do is probably Mark Vientos. And again, Mark Vientos' value is in the shitter. So, yeah, well, of course. I mean, Mo, they're not doing their job. Every GM should be getting the most possible. Everybody should be asking for a lot. Like, that is your job. You want to try to fleece the other team. That is everybody's job. And the other problem, and Dolo's just talking about it, with Suarez being injured, guess what, guys? The few bats that are on the market are getting more expensive. Like, that's why you got to pull the trigger as early as possible, because shit like that happens. And if Suarez is hurt and if it doesn't look good, he's not getting traded. That's one big bat off the market. So there's teams that are going to flood to the other bats on the market, what the Mets are looking for. Well, Mo, again, if they're not going to get more value, they're going to keep him. And what are they going to do? They're going to buy him out, and they're going to get absolutely nothing for him because they're going to buy him out, and he's going to become a free agent. So it's a lose-lose for them. They're not winning. So getting something for him isn't valuable. It is more valuable than keeping him and then buying him out after this year because they're not going to give him a $20 million club option. So he's going to get a free agent and you get nothing. They're not paying $20 million. They're not. The White Sox are in rebuild mode. Why are they spending any money? They're not doing that. So we'll see. So the White Sox, who are trying to trade him because they're trying to get something for him, are going to pay $20 million? Come on. That's nuts. Because he keeps people in the stands. Have you been to Chicago on the South Side? Nobody shows up. They suck. It's a ghost town in Chicago on the South Side. He's not bringing in fans? Come on. Garrett Crochet brought in fans. How did that work out? They traded him. He had control. It's not like they were spending money. Luis Robert doesn't bring asses in the seats. You could say Garrett Crochet brought more asses in the seats than Luis Robert. Yeah, Mo, but you don't keep your best player for fans in the seats, and they're not even keeping fans. It's not like they're getting 25,000 fans to see Luis Robert. They're lucky if they're getting 15 on a daily basis. Come on. That's ridiculous. So, are the Mets winning tonight? Yeah, it's a low bar. It's his best player. Yeah, Truman, I know. That has been the talk of the town. Okay, I mean, Mo, you're wrong on that. You're wrong on that. I'm telling you right now. They're not going to see Luis Robert. I'm telling you right now. A guy who's been terrible for them for the last 2 seasons. One of the worst teams in baseball. Yeah, they can't wait to go there. On the south side, on the worst part of town, to go to see Luis Robert. Come on. No. So are the Mets winning today? Got Frankie Montas on the mound. The possibility of Dylan Cease being his last start before he possibly could get traded. Very interesting. Very interesting. Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, McNeil, Vientos in the lineup at DH. Beatty, Alvarez, Mauricio. I like the lineup. I don't know. Vientos is the DH. I still believe he's not playing the field. One, because he can't play the field. He sucks defensively. And I think the Mets are trying to avoid getting him hurt. And they hope that the DH spot maybe provide a little bit of offense, which, I mean, Marte's red hot and you're sitting him, which makes no sense. But, hey, he's in the lineup. More and more reports are coming out that Vientos is in trade talks for God knows who. I mean, we're talking about the players that could be involved. We're talking about the teams that can be involved. The fact of the matter is, I don't think Vientos is here on August 1st. Same thing goes for Luis Acuna. So he's in the lineup today. I mean, they might take him out in the 4th inning again. Why not? Let's waste the rosters. Let's waste a guy on the roster early in the game. Let's do that again. That's a smart way to manipulate a roster. So the 18 games over 500 Mets are on a 7-game winning streak. Are in beautiful San Diego. Let's see if they can get a win tonight and make it 8 in a row, guys. See what Frankie Montas can give us. I mean, you look at the Padres lineup, you're like, wow, they should be much better. You know, they should be a lot better. But they're kind of hovering. It's weird the way the Padres are, and that's been the way for a couple of years. So, guys, with that said, there will be no postgame today, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I got to get my ass to work in about an hour. So I will be at work very, very shortly. So with that said, have a good night. Enjoy your late night Mets game. And hopefully tomorrow we're talking about a Mets win and 8 in a row for our New York Mets as we get to talk about more deadline talk going into 3 days until the deadline, guys. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets. And I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Good night.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn, the